then that's what we're looking at until the threat of this is over.
Meanwhile, the Deputy Director General in the Health Department, Dr. Nicholas Crisp, says they are talking to the Sports Department on the possible return of fans to stadiums. Crisp says queuing, going to the bathrooms and leaving the stadiums may make sports events super spreaders. The EFF says it's going to hold a protest outside the offices of the department next week, demanding the return of sports fans.
Yeah, the logic of continuing to have taxis, pubs, restaurants and so on, but sports stadiums only half full. We work very closely with the Department of Sports and Culture, Sports Arts and Culture, about stadium control. And stadiums not just about where you sit in the stadium. It's about queuing, it's about going to toilets at halftime, it's about exiting, it's about control of people in a big environment. So it's way more complicated than a very simple answer to answer here, where you could have 40 or 50,000 people in a space. And we do know that when we put large numbers of people into a space and somebody is infected, we do create super spreader events. So it has to be carefully managed, and we're not advising on our own. We're working closely with the affected parties.
Well, there was chaos in the City of Joburg's first official council meeting yesterday. Instead of electing the chairs of council committees, there were disruptions because of a fight over how to vote. The DA wanted to vote by a show of hands. The EFF, the ANC, wanted to vote through a secret ballot. In the end, no vote was held at all. These are councillors who spent an entire day in the chamber. Tebogo Kaas is the founder of the organisation Public Interest. Tebogo, good afternoon to you. So instead of the council fixing problems and fixing potholes, there was just chaos yesterday. How do you view what happened?
That was shameful, Steve. I mean, that was the saddest day in a while, because we expect legislators to focus on what we have elected them to do, which is to go and pass bills and act laws, make sure that they deliver on service deliveries in the local sphere. And what happened yesterday is quite regrettable, because politics took over, and you found organizations just trying to scap out or to outdo one another. In the process, nothing happened. I mean, it was just chaos. It was just shameful to see the manhandling that happened, I would say the physical altercations that we also observed. It was just so shameful.
I mean, we've seen this sort of thing happen in the National Assembly. Are you worried that there's a culture of this kind of disruption coming into our politics?
We had seen it, you know, at the initial stages of the EF coming to Parliament, I think around 2013. But then we thought it sort of subsided as the level of maturity improved. But it doesn't look like we're anywhere near there, because it looks like either there's a regression, or people just find, or parties just that may have lost elections or didn't perform well, find that the only way out is to disrupt the current legislation, the caucuses, which is regrettable, because that is the worst form of conduct that any party could ask of its representative to display in a legislative council. And it was a bad PR even for those parties who were behind such disruptions, because certainly voters are looking at it and say, if this is who they really are and they still want us to have them back in government, certainly not. And that was the worst face we've ever seen of both the ANC and the EFF.
We all know the DA is only in power in Joburg because the EFF voted for the DA, and the EFF really voted against the ANC, but that's a much bigger story. How worried are you? I mean, it's not the only council. I mean, Ekurhuleni is the same, Tshwane is slightly different. How worried are you that this is actually going to be life in Joburg? Nothing gets done.
It's extremely concerning, Stephen, because, you know, we know of the Machiavellian characters of the leaders of the EFF, and you could see that they are putting the DA through to lead the caucus, to lead the council in Joburg and other metros. They wanted to ensure that they set them up to this type of interruptions and disturbances, because the DA would rely a lot more on the EFF than other parties to pass legislation or budgets or stuff like that. And it is regrettable that we all know that the EFF has gone into bed with the DA and many other councils. So if this is a taste of things to come in Tshwane, Ekurhuleni and so forth, then we are in for a torrid period. And all it shows is the worst face of both the EFF and the ANC itself. And we cannot for the life of this democracy, countenance such conduct by both the EFF and the ANC, no matter whatever the motivation.
Is there anything citizens can do about this? I mean, this is the result of a local government election with a very low turnout. I must just stress this, a very low turnout. Lots of reasons as to why that is. Even though we all know that local government really affects your daily life. It's, you know, do you get electricity? Do you get water? Do you have potholes? Is your rubbish removed? All of that is local government. And in a way, I think the low turnout is because citizens were already frustrated. To see scenes of what happened yesterday is just going to make everyone more grumpy.
Yeah. Stephen, I'm glad you're asking that question, because upon reflection, we have realized that our generation, we have let down the generations of the Desmond Tutus, Mandelas, and so forth down. Because instead of taking up the baton and make sure that we get to be involved in civic education or civic activism, we have sat back to our comfort zones in the posh offices, luxurious houses in the suburbs, and sort of alienated ourselves from communities where we ought to be playing an active role to ensure that they're empowered to understand what it means to take the voting process seriously as part of a deliberate, to influence the deliberative processes that happen in legislatures. And we have done nothing, and that is why people believe or think that their vote belongs to a particular party, which is not the case. So by staying back at home, yes, we could put our point fingers at the IEC for not doing enough with regards to voter education, but it behoves us as parents, it behoves us as members of communities, as churches, as within our networks, to ensure that we encourage people to participate and register their voices. Because it is of no use to just sit back, which is now what happens. Now we've got harm councils to have this metros co-rate. You're going to have alliances of, smorgasbord of different colors, which invariably leads to this kind of situation, as we saw in Gauteng, in Joburg yesterday. So in essence, we need to do a lot more to encourage our kids to take up an interest, an active interest in politics, and make sure that they participate in the voting. They must make sure that they participate in ward council deliberations or meetings in their wards, and to ensure that we stop sitting back and expect that everything government will do. Because as we have seen, waiting for government is just waiting for a train that will never arrive.
There's a play there somewhere. I wonder, so what we're seeing in councils now, with coalition governments or coalitions of convenience in some cases, we're likely to see in at least one province next year. I mean, Gauteng probably, the ANC will fall below 50% and they'll have to form a coalition government. Maybe other places too, maybe even the Free State. How worried are you that this is going to happen in provinces? I mean, can you imagine?
God forbid, I hope it doesn't. Or if the ANC were to lose the next elections, that whoever it is that performs actually gets 50 plus, to make sure that you can have a singular coalitions are not waiting for us, basically, Stephen. We are just seeing it. I mean, I've heard people say coalitions are the future of this democracy and all, but coalitions are just not working. From time immemorial, remember NMB, that's where it started, the Bobani and all that. It never worked. And even here, it never worked with the previous ANC administration in the city of Joburg. Neither is it going to work very well with regards to this. And guess what? While the members of councils are not able to sit and do their job, the crime and grime in the city of Joburg is piling up. Small businesses are being affected because they are not getting their licenses and permits reissued and administered to. We still have crime seeping through. We don't have now a way in which now we can say this is a new vision to deal with this type of things. And in the end, who are we going to blame? We're going to have to blame ourselves for not taking up the action and making sure that we push politicians to do right by their electorate, which is not happening at the moment.
Tebogo Kas, thanks very much indeed, founder of the organization Public Interest. Well, there were predictions of chaos after the local government elections. Unfortunately, it seems some of them are coming true. Maybe things will start to change.